Hello everybody, I'm back again because we've got a new book out. And it's called The Dawns of Life. I'll tell you about it in a moment, but I would just like to remind you that we've got 4 books out now. The first one is Stairway to Freedom, which I think you can see on the screen behind me. The second one is The Path of Mankind. The third one is called Auras. The fourth one is called The Dawns of Life. And here are all the 4 books that you can see. Now, they're all available for free on download on our site, which is www.thegreatwhitebrotherhood.org/books/. I'll just repeat that, although I'll put it in the description below. It's, where are we? www.thegreatwhitebrotherhood.org/books/. Right, I don't need that bit of paper. Now, this new book is called The Dawns of Life, and it's subtitled An Exploration into the Origins and Development of Existence. As I say, it's our 4th book. It's not very long. It's only 69 pages long, but it is extremely interesting and packed with information that you will never have heard about before. It takes you right back to the very dawns of life, long before the planet Earth was created, long before anything in the galaxy was created, when there was absolutely nothing. There was nevertheless creation going on, and some archangels, I suppose, went back and investigated all that, and they actually explain exactly how life is created, and what else, where it all started, how life develops, at what point life was transferred into our universe, and how it all progresses. Okay, now, excuse me, my nose itches. The makeup lady, she put some powder on my face to stop my face shining under the lights, and it's horrible. Anyway, now, I've told you where you can find it. It's available there. All 4 books are available on Amazon. This latest one costs $3.85 plus postage and packing. Otherwise, you can download them, download them for free on our site, which is www.thegreatwhitebrotherhood.org/books/. Now, I'd like to give a special thanks to Guy and Scott, who've been answering all the emails, or most of them, enabling me to do the books. And I just want to say because I'm going to talk to you about another subject. I'm going to talk to you about rock people that used to live, rock beings that used to live. Anyway, we're looking for translators for our books. As you know, I write them in English, and we're looking for people to translate them into different languages. We've already got somebody that translates into Spanish, which we're very grateful for, but we'd like to try and find people that can translate from English to French, German, Russian, I don't know, whatever language. But I will insist you must have a mastery of both English and your own language, the language that you're going to translate into. So, excuse me, I very much doubt that, like a 12-year-old would have the necessary linguistic skills. You need to be quite a mature and well-educated person to be able to do all this. And you do it all for free. We do all this for free. There's never any question of any money involved. So if you want to contact us because you can speak well or can write well 2 languages, we're looking for people that can do that. Okay, now that's enough of that for the moment. I'm going to talk to you about. Oh, my stomach's rumbling. I don't know if you can hear it. I must eat one of these days. Rock people. Now, I don't know if you've ever looked on the internet, but somebody contacted me a while ago and said that there was apparently these rock animals, huge rocks that look like animals, look like people, look like all sorts of things. And were they at one time real? Well, I didn't know. So I contacted the Great White Brotherhood, and I expected them to say, no, they're just rocks that happen to have the shape of something else. But they didn't. They wrote me they dictated to me several pages. Actually, there's a lot more to this, but it's just a pre-ramble. I want to cut to the chase. And they said that these beings really did exist a long time ago. Now, the official story is that the planet Earth is 4 billion years old. That is not the least bit true. The planet Earth is much older than that, and there are various life forms that have come and gone over those millions and millions of years, and these rock beings are apparently one of them. Okay, now I'll cut out all the pre-ramble, and it says, now I'm going to read straight what they told me. Now we come to the part of the story where it reads like a fairy tale. The archangels decided to put life, that is to say animals and humans, on this planet Earth that they had created in this imaginary astral realm that looked physical. That's all part of the preamble, so don't worry about it. But all they had at their disposition were the materials that they had created with their imaginations, that is to say, earth, rocks, plants, and so forth. Flesh had not yet been thought of. Okay, so beings like us didn't exist. We're going back a really long way in time. So, first they created life in animal and human form from plant material. They quickly realized that this was an error because plants have very limited ability to act in what we might call a physical form. But now what's interesting, you know those little grey robots that come out of flying saucers, when they die or killed or whatever, and they're all topsid, people have found plants inside them. They're partly made of plants. So I wonder if that doesn't date back to all this time. Anyway, we go on. The archangels were complete novices at creating physical forms, although of course, they were experts in manipulating the astral realms. I got my nose fixed and now my mouth won't work. They quickly discovered, to their surprise, that there is a vast difference between creating in the astral realms and in the physical realms, even though this physical earth was in fact illusionary and was astral, but it needed to be treated as if it was physical, and so the archangels failed dismally when it came to creating solid, moving, thinking beings from plant material. So they dropped that concept and sat back and wondered what to do next. In fact, they experimented somewhat and created another form of life from fungi, was it fungi? I don't know, that strongly resembled jellyfish, jelly as in jellyfish. This was, excuse me, this was a success in aquatic areas and encouraged the archangels to ignore land and just create life in water. As the planet Earth is largely composed of water, seas, lakes, rivers, etc., it made sense to them to concentrate on creating life in water and of leaving the problem of land-based creatures until a later date. This construct of creatures, and even man-like beings made out of a sort of jelly, worked quite well, and the archangels breathed a sigh of relief and thought that their problem had been solved. They enlisted the help of the directors of life to create more advanced versions of animals with jelly-based bodies, and we still see the remnants of this experiment in some marine and aquatic creatures. But after a great period of time, it became obvious that life needed to conquer land as well as water. So, with the help of the directors of life, a series of creatures and even man-like beings were developed with the ability to breathe air instead of water and to crawl out of the seas and lakes to survive on dry land. As you can imagine, this failed miserably as well. Life in water, where the creature is virtually weightless and the body has little stress put upon it to move, is one thing. To expect the same creature to learn locomotion on dry land with gravity operating on the body, plus the stress of heat and cold, very quickly showed the limits of jelly types of body. So once again, this type of life form was abandoned. The archangels had only two elements left with which to construct living, moving entities: earth and stone, rocks. A moment's thought eliminated earth, and so rocks were pressed into service. There were certain advantages with using rocks. The first was that there was a limitless supply of rock of various sorts. The second was that it is extremely durable. Strange as this may seem, rock material, which seems so hard and unmalleable to modern man, responds very well to certain types of microwave and can be softened and moulded into whatever shape is required fairly easily. We break off here to say that the ability to soften and mould rock was known to a number of civilizations until fairly recent times. There exists in certain parts of planet Earth to this day, evidence of rocks that have been softened and moulded. It was also quite easy for archangels to manipulate the weights of rocks and through vibrations enable them to move. As everything is vibration, and rocks, being crystalline in nature, tend to react to vibrations, they seemed a promising material with which to construct life forms. So, many long years ago, before life in flesh and blood was created, that's us and animals and things, the archangels, in conjunction with the directors of life, created a form of living and to a certain extent thinking series of beings, both animal and human in form. But they created them from rock, which was the only material left at the time from which they could create anything. But the story is even more complicated than just creating life forms from rock. The archangels had no idea about the size until the moment when they started to create things from plants, fungi, and eventually rocks. The archangels had never created in solid form creatures similar to the ones that had been made in the astral realms. In those realms, size as we know it to exist now had no meaning. Everything in the astral realms existed as thoughts. So, the archangels looked at the mountains that existed in the somewhat physical realm, that was planet Earth, and decided to base the creatures on that sort of dimension. Therefore, they created from rock enormous, to our eyes, animals of all sorts, copies of animals that existed in the astral planes, and endowed these animals with the power to move and to think. We must understand that not every type of animal and insect that exists in physical form on Earth today were created, but a sufficient number were created to make a population. We will also say that these animals created from rock did not breathe in the manner that we do today, nor did they eat. Lastly, we must emphasize that they could not procreate and they had infinite lifespan. So we ask you to imagine, if you can, a planet with all the vegetable matter that you are accustomed to seeing, grasses, trees, etc., but also a number of huge animals wandering about on the surface of the earth made of rock. This strange scenario lasted a long time. Eventually, of course, man, also in rock form, was introduced. You would have to try to imagine that neither man nor the animals had any degree of intelligence as we understand it today. These creatures were alive, able to move, and that is about all one can say concerning them. For anyone who questions how we could possibly know about these strange creatures, we refer you to the Akashic records where every event is stored. It is not easy to trawl back that far in history of the earth, but some of us have done so and have been able to relive that strange time. So we are able to present to you this very bizarre series of events in Earth's history. You may, of course, accept or reject this story. We must now take a giant leap into the future to the time when the archangels and the directors of life realized that there was no point in continuing to create rocks, as these creatures could never evolve to be truly living, thinking aspects of the God force. So eventually a new aspect was created. Life in flesh and blood was thought into being. This was a truly massive program and took a long time to make. Sorry this is a bit long, but I want to give it to you as I got it. As you may be aware, a number of different types of humans were created and placed on Earth. Then there were beings you call Bigfoot, giants, Neanderthal, and eventually the humans that we belong to. Many of these original creatures were very large, based somewhat on the size of the rock humans. Giants obviously spring to mind, but even Bigfoot can be very large, and the Neanderthals were also large compared to modern humans. Eventually, as these flesh and blood beings needed to eat, it was discovered that they consumed large amounts of food, and so when it came to creating Homo sapiens, that's us, it was decided to reduce the size in order to make it easier to survive without spending all the time hunting. This reduction in size enabled modern man to spend time investigating other matters than just providing food for himself and for his family. But to return to these stone creatures, once flesh and blood-based beings were created, obviously the rock types were no longer required. As with all beings incarnate, they have a spirit that animates the body, just as we have. Rock-based creatures are no different. So the archangels simply removed the spirit and the rock bodies ceased to function. In effect, they died, I suppose. Quite over what period of time this was accomplished, history does not tell us, but it was done. Now, people today have noticed that there are a number of rock formations throughout the world that have a strange resemblance either to humans or to animals. These huge rocks have been damaged by weather over millions of years, but the likeness to humans and to animals can still be discovered in many of the rock formations. These rocks we have attempted to describe to you. They are the result today of a life form created long ago by the archangels charged by God to create living, thinking, moving beings, copies of the life forms that existed in the astral realms. As all this happened long before any flesh and blood life was created, all that remains are the few huge rock formations that resemble man or beast. We do appreciate that this explanation reads like a figment of our imagination, and apart from the rock formations that remain to this day, can offer no proof as to the claims we make. We have done our best to explain in as logical a fashion as possible the early history of Earth, and we can only leave it in your hands to accept or reject this history. And that's that. Okay, now, I'm going to shut up now. I just want to remind you of why I'm making this video. We've got a new book out. It's called The Dawns of Life, and subtitled An Exploration into the Origins and Development of Existence. And it's free on our site, www.thegreatwhitebrotherhood.org/books/. And it's available on Amazon. I think it's priced at $3.85 plus postage and packing. And you will find it very interesting, very complicated, but there is a lot of information in there about how life was formed. Okay? So I'll shut up now. Thank you very much for listening to me, and I'll speak to you again quite soon, I hope, on another topic. Bye.